Hi, I'm Rhonda Buss, and welcome to Sewbusted's Material Witness. Our guest today is Bryan K. Osburn.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, and a good friend of mine. We actually went to design school more years ago than either of us want to attest to.
It's been a little bit, yes.
And I'll be honest, 33 years ago.
You know, that's great, though, because, not to sound vain, but, we look good.
Yeah, we do.
After 33 years,
Yeah,
that's some time.
yeah.
So we're still doing what we love to do.
We kind of have our own little mutual admiration society going here.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that.
Anyway, Bryan was just a mere babe when we started school. He was 18 years old.
Just starting out, yes.
Just starting out, and we went to the design school that we went to is called Ray Vogue. It ultimately became Ray College. Sadly, it no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
But it was quite an intense program.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Without we really received a superior education, and God forbid that we'd ever make anything off of a commercial pattern.
Yeah, we were taught to make full patterns, meaning 2 sleeves and the back and front skirts and pants, and that was 30-something years ago, and you still remember because it was the right way to do it, which never goes out of style. And it's always a technique that will always be used.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, our sewing instructor was very particular about couture techniques.
Very particular, yes. Very particular. It's so funny because I've ran into some of her students over the last couple of years at various occasions, and they said they were all taught by the same instructor. She was phenomenal. Still is phenomenal. Yes.
German.
Yes.
German.
She was one of the best.
Yeah.
She was.
She's very, very particular.
She threatened a lot of people if you really didn't know what you were doing.
That's right.
But if you knew what you were doing, I was still scared. I was still scared of her.
So, Bryan, when did you start to learn to sew?
Well, I started at a very early age. By the age of 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be a designer, but I just didn't know the definition of a designer. My mom taught my brother, my sister, myself how to sew, so I started sewing like everybody else started with Barbie dolls that my sister owned by hand until high school when they sent me to sewing classes I taught.
So were the sewing classes in school or they were outside of school?
Outside of school, because I was in my teens and I didn't want to be the only guy in home ec class taking sewing classes. So my parents spent a little extra money and sent me to the college, Bridal College, on Saturdays to take a Saturdays class. And the instructor we were just talking about, Mrs. Getz was her name.
Yes.
She was the Saturday instructor, so I had her before I even enrolled into Bridal College.
See, I learned something new every day. I didn't know. I had no idea.
I've been sewing for years.
You had to jump on us.
But you knew what you were doing when you got to school.
I did.
Rhonda's work is phenomenal. I mean, you should see her top she is on today's beautiful, phenomenal work. Yes.
Thank you. So now, so our program at the time, it was only a 2-year program, but like we both have said, it was very, very intense. And then our final year, we were both kind of little stars. Again, mutual admiration society here.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
But Bryan was actually won Designer of the Year.
1986 was Designer of the Year for evening wear collection that I closed the show with. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I won some awards. I won for daywear and outerwear, millinery.
She won a lot of awards.
I did.
Beautiful coats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fur. My fur.
Oh yeah, the Persian lamb.
Yes.
With the red wool.
Yes.
The red crepe or red wool.
It was a red wool crepe that was inset into the sleeves.
I still watch that video today. That was May 25th, I think, 1986. And I'm an old school, but I still watch the video from time to time. Yeah.
We are Stone Age leftovers.
There's nothing wrong with that. The good old days. Nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. So when Bryan, you left Ray Vogue, and where did you go from there?
After Ray Vogue College, I went to Ray Vogue because my parents didn't want me to go to New York right away at 18. And after 2 years at Ray Vogue, they thought that fashion design thing was going to slip my mind and I was going to do something else. But no, I stuck with it. So I went to FIT in New York City for a year and a half. And I got there repeating some of the same classes because my credits didn't transfer. So as I got there, I pretty much mentored a lot of students because I already had to jump on them for 2.5 years.
Right.
So,
and not only that, like we said, the program that we had at Ray Vogue was really
intense.
pretty,
And it was good.
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And it was,
It really was.
you know, later on for myself, when I left, after I left, I came back and I taught for a period of time.
Yes, you did. I remember that.
And I was very proud because I took over, when I was in school, what I saw is that the kids who were at the Art Institute, now let me tell you, this child can draw. Oh my God. He can draw. And I remember our very first art class, our drawing class, and Veronica Chin, and she said, now, when you get out of my class, everyone will be able to draw. And she wanted us, I was so bad, she wanted us to give her an example of what we could do. No joke, Bryan, I drew a stick figure. Truly a stick figure, and I wrote on the bottom, "Good luck."
You know, you were warning her. You warned her.
Well, and then I ended up with one of my illustrations on the cover of the Millinery. You didn't know that?
I did not know that. See there, how much you learned.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah,
so you had a great history too.
Right, and
too.
When once the book was published,
wow,
Veronica brought it back to me.
That is something else.
And she had kept that stick figure, and she said, "You were just bad."
This is amazing. That's an amazing story.
Yeah,
that is an amazing story. Not only that we both keep in touch. I know I do keep in touch with Veronica to this day, with all the technology and Facebook, but it's great to hear these stories and to still hear about these people and the people that are still around. That's great.
Right, exactly. So anyway, I was teaching at Ray Vogue, and I taught a class on, because what I saw was that the skills were superior at Ray Vogue, but our sketching was, and so when we were competing for scholarships with other schools like the Art Institute, I mean, they could draw like no tomorrow.
That's right.
But their problem was execution.
The techniques wasn't as strong as ours. They were beautiful artists, and we had some great illustrators too. But as far as the technique, that's what got me a great job. The jobs after I left FIT, because I was a triple threat. I knew how to draw, so sketch, make patterns, and drape, and it's good to have those techniques. It takes you further.
So you went to FIT. And then you were there for a year and a half.
I was at FIT for a year and a half. After FIT, for 6 months, I was with the evening wear designer down in Soho, Valerie Poor. And then after that, I got a job in the bridal industry, mentoring with Vera Wang. And that mentorship lasted like 2 seasons, or 2 years. And then from there, I went into various other designers, bridal designers on 7th Avenue.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
So I transitioned into bridal around 1987. I was always doing wedding gowns. Evening gowns, but changing the colors to white ivory. It's a wedding gown. So I transitioned into that in like 87. From there.
And you worked with Jim Helm?
Jim Helm, which I still speak to today. Happy birthday, Jim Helm. Jim Helm, Galena, which is not around anymore. Lazaro, me and Lazaro went to school together. We all went to school together.
Yes.
Lazaro
was the year I was
before.
A year he was a year ahead of us.
Yes. Oh
my goodness! And the child had so much personality about him.
Yeah.
And it's not a bit of a surprise that he went on to bigger and better things.
A great thing, because when I got to New York, he got to New York a year before me, but when I was in between my working and freelancing, I would always go to him. Well, have you heard in the industry? Who's hiring? So I always used to come to the back door and have these great jobs, because everybody in the industry kind of knew each other, and that's what we did. We shared information, and that's how I got the contract on 7th Avenue. That's how I got all the stores across the country, because of Lazaro and the company of Jim Helm.
Very nice, very nice. It's a really small world, people.
But I couldn't stay too long, because I left and started my own business in '93, meaning that I was just designing under my own label, and that's what I did, custom and bridal.
And then you actually left the United States at one point.
Yes, I went to Provence, France.
Oh, and by the way, the man speaks Romanian.
I do a little bit, yeah, a little bit. I try. Yeah. I went to Provence, France. Started having various fashion shows over there with a friend of mine, interior designer Paul Mathieu. We would do AIDS benefit fashion shows, and one time I traveled there to do with my collection and just stayed for a year and a half, and got homesick, and I came back to New York only to move to Charlotte. People say, "Why New York and Paris and you moved to Charlotte?" My family is Southern. I wanted to go after my Southern roots, so I stayed in the South for about 8 years.
And he has an incredible mom. Oh my goodness. I remember
I told
when
about
we were
you
in school.
You were coming by today.
She was so lovely, and she was like the quintessential perfect mother. She just supported you, and oh my goodness.
Well, me and Rhonda was talking before the cameras were rolling, how things are classic, old school, things that some attitudes and some styles just no longer with us. Everybody's changed things, so it's good to be elegant and dress nice sometimes.
Actually, what we were talking about before we just kind of getting a warm up, we were talking about how we dress to go to on a flight.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I commented how my husband always jokes that I look like I just stepped out of Vogue magazine, and I said, well, there is just nothing that drives me more batty than just some of the things. And I understand people want to be comfortable, but for me and for Bryan as well, it's a matter of respect for ourselves and for those that are around us.
It's nice to dress a little nice, and you in the public eye, you're traveling with other people, and we don't dress up anymore. I think we could just kind of dress up a little bit more, and it's fun. It makes you feel good. It really makes you feel good.
Right. It really takes no more effort.
It does not.
No, not at all.
It does not. Mm-hmm.
So you left the United States?
Yeah, went back to New York only to pack to move to Charlotte. When I lived in Charlotte for 8 years, I was an in-house designer for about 3 stores across the country. And when I moved to Charlotte in 2000, nobody was doing what I was doing. There was like no designers really down there. So I was like the wagon in the wheel. It was like the first thing ever. And I stayed busy for 4 years straight. Incredibly busy and very time consuming. 2004, it changed. A lot of dresses were coming in from China, and why would you have a $4,000 gown from me that has the same amount beading on it for a dress from China for $400? So that changed. So quickly, I moved from Charlotte in 2008, and I waited till my last bride was finished. She got married September 2008. That's Saturday. That Tuesday, I was already back in Chicago, packed all my belongings and everything, because I planned it so well. So I moved back to Chicago. I've been here since 2009, and I got my roots back and got back into the business, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm continuing doing the custom-made dresses, prom dresses. I added the bridal gowns, the evening gowns. I travel a lot doing the bridal expos, and this is where I ended up. And I'm from Chicago, so it's my home. Yeah.
Right. But at one point, you left New York and you went to Europe.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I did after the
it's a good
14
story. I wanted
years,
to make sure you heard this part.
I left New York to go to Europe because, again, a good friend of mine, Paul Mathieu, world famous interior designer, was looking for a designer to create a collection for his annual AIDS benefit fashion show he would have in Provence every year. The first year, I sent the collection. The second year, I went and stayed for a couple of weeks, and then third annual show we did, I ended up staying and living there for about a year and a half. So I was there, and I was there creating, designing. You have to do so many different things to become a European citizen. So I was there for the time I was there, and I got homesick. after a year and a half, so I wanted to come home.
It was a great experience.
It was a great experience. The countryside of Provence is very, very chic, and just very elegant, very traditional. They always dress for flights, I'm sure. And but it was just a great experience. Didn't know the language, didn't speak much of French, but I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun. Small town, so it wasn't a lot of people there anyway to speak to. So I got a little homesick, so but yeah.
Yeah. So he came back to Chicago, and we reconnected because a good friend of mine, about a year ago, I think. Yeah.
This time, last October.
Okay.
Last
all right.
October.
So a friend of mine, so a little over a year ago, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, had gone to a fashion show, and she said, "Oh gosh, I went to this great fashion show, and this guy," and she said, "Oh, I can't remember his name. And then she says, Bryan, and she says, Bryan Osburn. And I said,
like ding, 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 ding.
Wait a minute. It has been 33 years ago. So, my mind is not quite,
no,
there.
Don't say that.
And
Don't say that.
And I recognize that name. And I started,
that's amazing. It's funny.
Why do I recognize the name? And then I started thinking and thought, I went to school with a Bryan Osburn. And so then she had some pictures, and she showed me a picture, and it was you.
Yeah.
and then I don't remember exactly. I think anyway, I became the president of Haute Couture this last year,
which I already knew about. It for about a year or two before we connected.
Oh, okay. And so we needed to put our programs together for the year, and I really insisted that Bryan come and speak to our group. So our program chair, she looked you up, and actually I think she got the information from Antoinette.
Yes.
So he came, and everybody was blown away.
I love doing lectures. I love speaking about the industry, and love talking to people about their craft. It was a lot of fun.
So what has sewing meant to you? I mean, it's kind of obvious, but what has sewing meant to you over the years?
Sewing, I hate to sound like a nerd, but sewing is everything to me. It's my first passion. People have passions, and it's good to have a passion no matter what it is, but sewing is my passion. Even though I can't sew when I'm not in a good mood, when I'm not feeling well, but when I do sew, it's like you and people out there who do sew know that when you're behind a machine or when you're quilting or whatever you're doing, you get lost in the moment. You could be down, in your sewing space for hours. So sewing is my passion. If I'm not on a machine in 3 or 4 days, I got to get back on the machine. I feel like I'm not eating. So I just love it. I love, the preparation of the sewing area, getting everything together, pulling the patterns out. Everybody has a routine, how they put their pieces together. And again, I could be in my sewing space all evening. So yes, I'm a nerd. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but I do.
He's a real cute nerd, though.
But that's my real passion. I love it. I love everything about sewing and the process, the cutting, all that.
Yeah, as the years have gone by, I've found that sewing it's not just about creating a garment. It's about the friendships that you make.
Most definitely.
And I know that, I think that every friend I have, or most every friend I have, a few exceptions, but for the most part, every friend I have, there's a sewing connection.
Okay.
And and to think that the richness of those friendships would not exist had it not been for sewing. So there was a time when people sewed because it was cheaper to sew. I think that you can buy a $600 yard fabric today, and then you say, well, then it's not. But to be honest about it, if you think about your time, then no, it's not cheaper. But you always need to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges.
That's right.
So if you're making a garment and you are using an expensive piece of fabric, you need to compare that garment to a designer garment.
Yep.
So yes, it will be cheaper for you to sew, but there's so much more to sewing than just sewing. It's expression.
Well, let me add to that. My story is with my grandmother, who Southern, who had 14 kids. My father being one of the kids. No, I'm sorry, 15 kids. She sewed because it was more affordable for her to sew. And I see what you're saying. It's two parts to it.
I don't know how the gal had time with 15
Yeah,
children.
she did.
Oh
Yeah,
my
and
goodness.
I knew how to sew as well. But they
She
bought
needed
fabrics.
to write a book on time management.
Yeah, multitasking. She had fabrics and she bought the clothes because she couldn't really afford to go to the stores. So she made all my my uncles and her kids clothes. And my mom sewed because she was tall and thin. She loved sewing, and we were kind of thin ourselves, so nothing really fits. So that's why she sewed for us, and she taught that for us to sew. Because like now, I do the whole gowns and the prom dresses and the evening gowns. If my brother has to make a pair of curtains or my sister has to make a have up her pants, she can do it because my mom taught us.
Mm-hmm. And it's part of your history, like it's almost like your DNA.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely, yes, definitely.
So, we are actually in his studio. Excuse me. It's just a treat to be here. There's wonderful fabrics and feathers and gloves and all kinds of things all around. So, and there are a couple of things that Bryan is going to talk to us about. Now, as I said in my preliminary, I'm just learning about what to do, and I haven't, I belong in the computer remediation. Okay, so we're back, and that was a great place to end and show just my ineptness with phones and videos and cameras and
New
everything.
technology.
Yes. So, Bryan, tell us about this dress that you did.
This is a dress that a bride wore in 1987. She was nice enough to loan it back to me. She is the heir to the Budweiser Fortune beer in Wisconsin. The dress is Duchess silk satin, ivy, winter white, mink collar and cuffs that are detachable for cleaning. These buttons I designed while I was in New York just for this dress. I kind of call them the Elizabeth Taylor button. Has a cultural pearl in the middle, rhinestones around the bottom, around the end of it. This bride came to her wedding in a horse-drawn carriage, Clydesdale horses, because that's the traditional horse of the Budweiser beer. So she loaned this back, and this is part of my archives.
Very nice. Mm-hmm. Very nice. So before we move on, let's just take a quick look here. This form that he has all of his brooches and things draped on.
Yeah, this is fun. A lot of people, when they come into the space, they look right at this. And usually all the lights are on it so you can really, really see all the crystal, how they shine. I never sell any of these because some of them were given to me from my aunt or a cousin from 50 or 60 years ago. I hunt thrift stores, buy the garment, trash the garment, take the buttons off, and I reuse these all the time. I'll put them on a brooch. I'll put a brooch on a suit or a dress for a show. After the show is over, after the collection is done, they go right back on here. I hate to sell them. I've been asked a lot to sell various ones, but these are all my special ones, and they all have a history.
Well, they're
story.
Irreplaceable.
Yes, they are.
Like most things that are in here, I'll just show you real quick this beautiful piece of fabric that he has hanging up. Oh my goodness, really pretty.
This is a silk georgette with paillettes and little beads on it. It has little beads and little sequins on it, and it was on a clearance table.
Closer.
The people in the store said it never sold because nobody knew what to do with it. So I bought it like for nothing, and I don't know what to do with it now. It's been here for several years, but it turned into something.
So here's a great little piece that he's working on right now.
This is my very latest. I was just in the studio till 3 o'clock this morning working on this piece right here. I was inspired by my trip to Romania, and all these swirls and turns like this was inspired by this stained glass window I saw in Romania. And this is stretch silk satin.
Beautiful.
It's gonna have a tulle skirt in black and off white underlay.
And you have a few jackets to share with us.
This is one of my favorites. First of all, I love silk wool. It's like one of my favorite fabrics. It is silk wool, twill, and as you see, it sews together so beautiful. I love a graphic print. I love black and white. I've lined it in pink charmeuse. Has French cuffs, antique buttons. This pen was I designed this pen with AB stones and pink stones to match the buttons and the lining of the jacket. And the pink just pops out on the white and black.
Very nice.
I have another jacket to show you. This is a striped jacket. I love stripes. It makes you kind of work a little bit harder when you're trying to match stripes, because you see the stripes are all matched and mitered down the back. You see a certain stripe on one side of the jacket has to be the same stripe on the other side of the jacket. Matching stripes takes a little bit more fabric, but you also get a little bit more money for the jacket as well. Lined again in silk charmeuse, and it has the grosgrain piping just to finish off. Our teacher told us when a lady wears a jacket and if she throws it over a chair, it should look just as nice on the outside as the inside when it's draped over a chair.
I agree. And then there's a little signature of yours on that jacket.
What would that? It's the top
velvet
collar.
collar.
Yeah, everything has a velvet top collar. I love the velvet top collars. It's just very elegant. The under collar is, as you see, is all mitered here. Had a lot of fun making this jacket. It's like a polished cotton. I had a lot of fun making the jacket.
Beautiful. So we've scanned around just a bit, but I'll go back around a little more. We're down in his studio, and look at gloves hanging and feathers and just all kinds of things. His work table. So we will actually, I will just let Bryan talk to you because I don't want to ruin the video again. So Bryan, do you have a fun little story to tell us before we go?
Fun little story. There's a lot of stories that I have. I can tell you a story about a client. I can tell you a story about fabrics. I can tell you a horror story about a client. And, one of the horror stories about a client, a bride, I can tell you that I had a wedding dress delivered to the bride. She picked it up 2 weeks before the wedding. The day of the wedding, she noticed a big hole in the back of the wedding dress. Didn't know what happened. It looked like it was a burned hole. But turns out that she had kept the dress in the trunk of the car. And when you open the trunk of the car, the light sometimes comes on. The light must have burnt a hole in the dress. So the night before the wedding, I was trying to reposition and put more tulle layers on her dress to finish off the hole that was shown. So needless to say, I don't deliver dresses 2 or 3 weeks in advance a lot of times because people take them home. They have kids, they have dogs, they have animals at home. So I always store them here before they take them. But she was so happy that I fixed the dress for her. I had to do it last hour, go to the wedding and all that, but it was fun. I had a fun time at the wedding though.
Thanks, Bryan. Well, also, in the moral to the story is she thinks that it actually burned the light in the trunk of her car is what burned the hole.
Yeah.
So don't store your gowns in the trunk of your car. But thank you so much, Bryan, for doing this today. It was just a delight.
It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was, and me and my inaptness, but it was fun. So thank you again, and on to bigger and better things. Until next time, sew on.
Happy sewing.